So I would like to welcome everyone. Hi.
Hi.
We have today our guest, Valdemar. Dr. Valdemar will talk about the strength of working with business intelligence tools, not only for visualizing things, but also how it can be utilized for in large agile organizations to help out to understand. Oh, yes. So I would just brief about Synthera. Welcome to Synthera. Synthera is a company today focusing on machine learning, data management, and computer vision. So welcome, Dr. Valdemar. Please give us your seminar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as you can see, the title is a Power BI as a tool for large agile organizations. So, as you can realize, that Power BI is a very complicated tool which can be applied in many ways. Probably some of you already know it from the different purpose, because it's getting more and more popular. It's relatively new, but still is probably around 10 years on the market. So you can use it in a different ways. Today I will say something a little bit more about less known use case. So, and my seminar will combine two things. I will say something about theory, how to build this about business intelligence tool, how to utilize it in the organization, and also I will show some practical example which maybe will clarify this theory, because it's good to combine these two things together. So the next thing, of course, it's a agenda. So as I said, this is my plan. First will be an overview of Power BI. I will say a few things about Power BI, just to give some terms, some nomenclature to understand that we some theory I need to a little bit introduce. Then I will say something about the large organization, what kind of difficulties they can experience and how to solve them using tool like Power BI. Then I will present this solution proposal, how we can solve it. And in the point number 5, I will show you some technical details, how to use it. I mean, how to operate. I prepared very simple, short pedagogical example. We can go through all the process in a very briefly way, just to give you a hint where of course, look for materials. And the last point, it's a little bit something extra, some bonus. I will say that it's not only Power BI. Some of these techniques and tools which I will present can be used in other Microsoft tools which are in something called Power Platform. So you can utilize these techniques also in good old Excel, and probably some people don't know about that. So it could be quite maybe interesting for you. So let's start from the Power BI overview. Tool probably for presenting dashboard. This you can see on the picture which is taken from Microsoft web page as showing the possibility of the Power BI. Then it's a web page you can go and then take a lot of information about Power BI. Of course, you can find many things. Many websites showing how to use, how to learn it. So there is no problem. If you want to learn something more, yes, you can go there and see. And if you see here, then we have this dashboard. So you have something which all of you are familiar. So we have a lot of charts, some bar charts, combining some different values, pie charts, KPIs, numbers, everything. And this is something you can visualize the data, so doing charts. And this is something I will not talk about. Probably I started for me just to give the connection to those of you who know this tool, but I will concentrate on something like exchanging information. Because of course this is also an information, but this is an aggregated information on the, I would say, executive level. This is also important, but let's go to less known use case. So before we do that, of course, I will also say some advantages of Microsoft Power BI. So first thing is a possibility to connect with many different data sources. And it is true. I mean, probably you can connect with Power BI to almost everything which looks like a data. I will, of course, give you some examples in the details, but this is very important feature of Power BI. Then, and this is I would like to show you later, you can use the visualize, which called table and matrix visuals, which are similar like Excel. They are Excel-like tabular data visuals. This is something which could be interesting because that's the way you can share the information which are stored in tables. This is something really, it could be really useful, and I will talk about it later more. Then, of course, you can create this live dashboards. I'll show you an example, but you can using Power BI service to publish it using cloud solutions, so you can publish it to cloud, and then of course everyone who has an access to this application can read this data, which is very, very useful. Of course, everyone in the organization or even outside the organization. So this is something which is also useful. You don't need to build a special front-end tools to show your data. And altogether, it enables something which is really more, very, maybe you can find it as a buzzword, but this is something very important. So be data-driven. So if you can exchange data inside organization, then yeah, it's better. It's better to do that than not to do that. That's a little bit obvious. So this is a step to be data-driven. And the last thing, which is also very important, especially in big companies, it's data safety. Because this data is stored in a cloud environment, you have a possibility to label this data with their security level. If you have this application, you can always restrict some content to some users. So you can, using the same data, you can prepare them, let's say, executive summary or something more common. So this is, you have control of data, controlling data. So it's easy to put data there, but it's not easy to take it, remove it, read it in non-control way. So this is another advantage of Power BI. So, and then during the next slides, I will show you in details this point because, yeah. But another important thing, very important thing, and maybe when people start to use Power BI, they don't realize one thing. Inside Power BI, we have something which I called two-layer data structure. So we have Power BI, it's an analytic tool. It's not a database in this sense that you know SQL databases. When you store data, you store production data. Of course, inside Power BI, there is something which looks like a database, which is a table. Like in SQL, you have data in tabular form. You have tables connected and so on. It looks the same, but this is not a database system. You need to feed data. I mean, you need to read data from external data sources. I mentioned there is a lot of this data. Then we can see three of them. So you can connect to the database. It's on-premise or cloud database. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make difference what you are using for. You can also connect to other applications, which allows you to do that via APIs. So if there is an application who allows you sending GET request, you can always take data from that. And also you can take files in SharePoint. So you may think that it's not a very professional way of handling data, but I will try to defend this later. So, but you can read the files. It's a JSON file, comma separated file, or an Excel file, everything which is easy to produce for a user. So this, we have this data source. Then we use the tool which is called Power Query. This is an ETL tool, which is extract transform and load. So this is a tool which allows you to read this data, transform it, and then put it in this data set. When we do that, we can utilize these visuals. You can transform this data using language which is called DAX, and this is way of processing data which already are stored here, and then you can send it to the service and you can publish it in the Power BI app. And why I'm pointing this out? Because many people use only, in fact, this. Of course, you need to use the Power Query. But imagine that you are using Power BI only for a purpose of visualizing data. You can have some system of data analysis, machine learning, or whatever. Some system you can have a server working in Python which delivers you the data. And then you can prepare this data in that way that they don't need to be transformed in any way. All you need is just to read them. You don't do the so then you don't need this part at all. Of course, you can use it, but if you start to work with Power BI, you just click twice and that's all. But this is very important because this part allows you to do really, really nice thing. And this will be I will concentrate on this part, not this part. I assume that many people already knows that, but I would like to say something which is maybe not so common. So we will concentrate on this Power Query tool. This you need to remember that inside Power BI, before you see the data in the tabular form, you need to read them using this query, Power Query tool. So please keep in mind. So we more or less know how the Power BI is organized. So we know this two-layer data structure. We know that we can connect to data source and we can have visuals. And let's leave Power BI for a while and let's go to the our company, big company. So we have big companies which works in an agile way, and we have three issues. First one, is a danger, because if the organization is really large and they are working in agile way, of course, if the team is too big, it's impossible to have a collaboration on a regular basis with other teams. That's natural. It's called silo structure. So each team works separately and has an issues with communicated with other. One don't need to say that this is danger for an organization because you need to manage it. I mean, it's not good thing. So one can think about this kind of solution using Power BI as a method of breaking down this silo structure and to allow teams to exchange information. The second thing, of course, each of these teams is working due to agile methodology inside. They have their own IT solution, like Jira. They have our own backlogs. They communicate it. They have all these things which you know from the agile methodology, and they are working inside. And of course, there is absolutely no need to replace this tool because they are working good. This methodology is well established, is growing. More and more companies adapt it not only for a software development but also for hardware development. But so we don't want to change something which works good, but we want to add something more. So there is some size of the group that you cannot work in agile well in this way. And of course, those teams, to break down this silo structure, we don't interfere in the internal way of working of each team, but we need to have a dialogue, because this dialogue is important during the pairing process. You need to know what other people do if it affects your team. Maybe some other teams is doing things and you should know about it because it can influence on your own work, and the same vice versa, because maybe you do something which others need to know. So it would be nice to have a nice tool to inform people each other. So that is the business need. We have large teams working agile, but there is a difficulties to communicate because we don't have an, I would say, collaboration on a regular basis. So that's why we are here. So if you go down, what is the pros and contrasts of using Power BI as a kind of tool, as a solution? It's easy and fast to build. That's really because you can, without any sophisticated programmistic language, you can connect to this database, build a solution, and if you compare it, contrast it with the implementing dedicated external solution, which is also a solution, but still, you need to have some time to deploy it. It's a cost of hiring, of buying this tool. And then you need to learn people how to use it. And if this is a long deployment time, there is a risk of being obsolete because the company is changing all the time. The structure is changing, the teams are changing, things are changing. So if you don't have a tool which is easy to maintain, then you will end up with the tool that no one needs. And sometimes it's a case. I mean, the company introduced some system which seems to be very good, but after 2 years, it means that no one will use it because there is the company changes, the situation in the company changes. But of course, there are some disadvantages. This is an analytic tool. It's not a data production tool. You cannot store data there. It has some limitation. It's not so, I would say, from that perspective, solid, stable, that you cannot have it's not, you don't have backups, you don't have a scalable solution. It's not an production database. But still, knowing that, of course, you don't need to replace them. You need to use these tools as you have, but you can add it as something additional, something new, something which somehow fills the gap. So this is a gap filling tool, I would call it in this way. So we are here, and then how we can build our solution, how it can be built. So we need to build something which is called data model. This is another theoretical thing. So data model is usually, when you look at the materials in the internet, also you read, you have different tables in this model. One is called fact tables, and the second one is called dimension tables. So let's concentrate further on these fact tables. This contains the information about daily business. In our case, it will be some kind of issues, some kind of content, what we are doing, the plans, plans, that's the best word probably, what we are planning to do, what our team is planning to do, and we will know that every team which could be affected by our activities know that, but also vice versa. But these fact tables, to understand the difference between fact tables and dimension tables, it's if you go back to the simplest case, it's a sales. That if company sells something, that this is in fact, this is some kind of event, something which happens. We know that we sell something, we have some money, but if we know to analyze this data, we also need to think who sells it, who was the same as salesman, which part of the organization, in which country, in which region, maybe who is the receiver, who buys it. So we need to add to these facts some dimension which allows us to have some insight, because maybe we are interested in the situation that we want to know what is the sales in that region, or we want to aggregate this data, compare regions, compare the salesman, compare other things. So we have some basic tables which contains facts, and we're adding dimensions which allows us to build the solution which gives us some insights. So we need both of them. So how we build these fact tables in such a situation? What we have in companies? We have company of a warehouse, and this is the best thing if we have it, because it's a huge database which stores all information. We can easily connect them using SQL queries. So we can introduce these queries in the Power BI and read the data. Also, if we have some new modern system which allows us to connect to APIs, then we can always do it like this. We can just read it. But sometimes we are not in such a good position. The companies have some old systems, which works very good. They were very expensive. There were a lot of effort to introduce that, but they are old. It means that sometimes it's difficult to get data from that because they don't have good mechanism of import. Very often they have a possibility to import data to the old Excel files. And we can import these Excel files also to our data model. And the same thing, we have teams and user which can provide this data also in the files, in the Excel files. Of course, as I said previously, you can think that it's not a good solution, but Excel has some advantages. Everyone knows it. You know how to handle it. If you send to someone a table and ask them, okay, please fill it with your information, fill it with your plans, then it's no issue to learn people how to use the tool, how to handle it, and so on. So you can have this data in Excel form, you can put it on the SharePoint, but everyone who needs to have an access to them, have access to them, and then we can combine them into one table. So this is something which utilize the flexibility in data reading, because if this tool for managing information should be to keep all data in one place, because otherwise it makes no sense. If you want to have an overview what is going on in the organization, what kind of issue can affect you, then you need to have it in one place. And then we can utilize the Power BI to connect many data sources. So, okay. And then we are coming back to this Power Query. And this Power Query contains inside everything you know from the more, I would say, professional or older tools of data manipulation and analysis we can find in Python, you can find in a SQL. So we can combine, so we can select rows and columns. You don't need to read all of the data. Maybe you are interested only in selection columns, rows. Power Query allows you to do that. Allows you merging tables. So you have two tables, we have one common column. You can combine them together, build one big table. Imagine you have some, I don't know. If you have an sales, then this sales has an invoice number. And then you can combine this invoice number with the dimension. So this merging tables mechanism allows you to connect data tables, fact tables connected with dimension tables. Of course, you can join tables. If they have the same structure, the same columns, you can build one big table. This is very good when you want to add data from different teams. The only thing, then you can add. Then of course you can calculate new columns. If for some reason there are some data missing, you can produce them by calculate the data. And of course you can edit it if you want to replace something data. Of course, there is an issue if you combine data with many sources, you experience problems like data format. Something is you need to exchange form of strings and so on and so on. So you need to do some preparation, because the purpose is that from each of these data sources I show here, you want to have the unified output, because then you can connect it into one table and build on top of it, visualize and have the information. So this is more or less theory. So we know what we are aiming for. We want to build a platform which exchange information inside the company. We want to use it, Power BI, because it's flexible. It has a possibility to connect to many data sources, which allows us to have a complete solution for interesting people. And And that's how it works. Let's look at then practical example. This is something I prepared just to show you, because that was a theory, but let's balance it a little bit. This is really, really simple. It's very, very simple. It contains no variable data, but just to show you how it works. You have application which is called Power BI Desktop. You can download it. This application is free, and then you can use this all the method I described here. What is my data? My data is very simple. That you have, imagine that you have company with two very, very big teams. One is doing Internet of Things, IoT. They are building some hardware somewhere. And there is another team which has database. It's also huge. Imagine that from some reason it's difficult to work them together, because it's a theoretical example, because I want to have only two teams. So this, and of course, then we have situation that this database team creates some issues, and they know that these issues affects the same things is reverse. So we are building such a structure in the Power BI. Here we have two tables. This is our fact tables. So we know the issues. We have some description and who is produced this issue. And this is a connection that we see that this one is linked, could affect this team, and this issues can affect that team. So we have this dimension. So we can, of course, we can expand it at another dimension. That's obvious, but this is a simple example to understand the process. So then if you have it like this is already done. But if you click here, then there is something I was a little bit advertising, which is called Power Query Editor. And you can see here, if you look at the menu, of course, we will not go through it. But if you are interested, you can deepen your knowledge and then start to dig for it and look. Then you have all the things which are really easy to use. You don't need to be a programmer, because you can keep rows, remove rows, choose columns, remove columns. You can transform data. You can add column, you can calculate column. So you can do a lot of things which are, you can even run Python script or R script if you want to manipulate this data in a more sophisticated way. So, and what is even nicer, then you have something which is called Advanced Editor. Look here, this is steps which were introduced to group this data. I had two files, that two data source. One is provided by database team, the other is by IoT. Of course, I prepare it in the simplest possible way. They are Excel files, but still, you can imagine that it's a database, no problem. Then you can combine it, so you can apply some many steps. And then you have some advanced editor, and there is a language which is called M language. They changed names, so there are two names you can find, and then you can find it. So you can also type it as an ordinary script. So this is quite powerful tool. It's not only clicking, but if you want to go outside the graphic user editor and use it as a tool of combining data, then you can. Of course, it doesn't apply the situation when your data is already well prepared. You have a system which generates data in correct form. But if not, if you want to have each of these tables could be transformed in different way, at the end of the day, you want to combine them in one table, then you have it. So this is something which is really nice. And then you have this Power Query Editor, and then you have data. Good. So this is data view. You have this view. You have connect. You can connect them, as you may think that this issue ID is the same like issue ID here. So you can connect it, no problem. You can tell the Power BI that these two tables can be connected. And then if you go to the visualization that I mentioned, that you can use the matrix or the table, which looks like this. So you have a nice table. So we have issues, team, which produce the description link. You can expand it in the way you want. It's no problem to expand it. And then you have it in Power BI desktop. It's desktop, so you can of course immediately see that this is something which is located on your own computer, which is not the case because we want to populate this data over all company. So then we have a button allowing us to publish it. So if you here publish this report online in the Power BI service. So we are sending into Azure, and we are sending into something which is called Workspace, which is here. If you look here, if you look to this workspace, then we have the sample visuals, which is the same you have seen before. So we have this visuals here in this our workspace. Whole team can work on it. We can prepare it. At the end, you can publish it as an application, and it looks like this. First thing, of course, this requires some additional expenses, and this is not free. As you can see here, I'm using a trial for that. Microsoft provides 60-day free trial, so you can try it out before you can use it. So this is built using this kind of trial. So this is a good idea just to try and error and see things like that. And you have it as an application. What is nice, you don't need an additional application to read this data. You have this filtering mechanism. So if you are interested that imagine I work for database team. Okay. So I can create what we have created. We have created these issues. We have them. We are working on them. Okay. But of course, what could be affect us? So we have this. So we see that the IoT works on some other issues, and maybe we should know something more about that. That's the way. And imagine you can have this tool as a part of dialogue. So you meet them from time to time, not on everyday basis, but let's say maybe once per 2 months. We have some dialogue, some meeting with them, and then you can use it. Use this visualization when you can discuss this issue. Okay, what why we are doing here? Why we should know about it? What is the purpose of that? What activities our team should do because of that? So this is something which enable the data information. What is nice also, you can export this data to PowerPoint to analyze it in Excel, or you can create a PDF. So you can just have and this is live. This data set is refreshed with some frequency. It's not live in this sense that it's refreshes all the time. You need to have some refreshment, but it's an analytic tool. You don't need to have it. You don't need to have data live. So maybe you can do it several times per day. For example, it's enough. Once per day. It depends on the situation. So you have this data, and you publish it, and you have then the tool for the dialogue. You have a tool for dialogue. You can utilize it, so it allows you better, and of course this is an information content, but of course you can build the same visuals I showed on the first screen. You can build charts, you can monitor KPIs, you can see what happens in the organization. So this is also another way. So as I need to point out, to do that we need to have an agile method which can be changed when the system in the organization is changing. Then you can change this tool easily to reflect the current state. So that's why you don't need sometimes to use this dedicated tool, which are sometimes difficult to maintain or modify. And you have possibility to see what is going on, the situation. So yeah, that's important. Okay, so let's go back to our slides. So this was a practical example, and this is another information, because at the end I would like to say one more thing. There is one more thing. This Power Query is a part of Microsoft Excel, so you don't need to use Power BI. This is a solution for smaller company. Imagine this. I will show you the example, but imagine the situation that you can do it the same thing with Excel. I will show it in a moment. And what's more, then there is a tool which is called Power Automate. Is a part of Power Platform, which allows you to, for example, execute some scripts. And some of you maybe know that Microsoft Excel has his own language, which is called Visual Basic for Application. But recently it was introduced a new scripting language, which is called Office Script, which is based on TypeScript. And TypeScript is a subset of JavaScript. So this is a tool which is also well known for programmers. So you can write down the scripts in the web, on the Excel in the web, to execute some also transform data. So you can even expand it. So you can put this Excel to the Excel file to the SharePoint and then modify it every time when the content is changes. This is automatic. So this is another tool which allows the automatization. And now you see that it's not so, I would say, primitive solution. One can see, okay, database is something better than Excel. Maybe it is, but still in many companies, a lot of things, a lot of data are distributed using Excel. And this Power Query is a part of Excel. So then imagine situation that you are not anymore in big company, but every single week you need to go to your boss with the report. And you are doing this report by collecting the Excel sheet from your colleagues. Then you need to copy, paste, modify them, and you do it every single week. You don't like this because you don't want to do the same thing every single week, which are repetitive. You want to automate it. This is something, and you want to do something more interesting. So if you go to the Excel, unfortunately, it works only for a Windows version of Microsoft Excel. Then you can immediately see that here you have a Launch Power Query Editor. This is the same, almost the same query editor which you find in Power BI, it means that you can here connect to many databases, Azure, Power Platform sources. You can connect to database, you can connect to files, JSON. So there is a large amount. In Power BI, there are even more data type. This Excel is a little bit behind Power BI because it was originally introduced in Power BI, and now it's moved to the Excel, but it's expanding, growing. So it's good to know, because some people maybe are not aware of that there is such a possibility. And you can use it, you can refresh this data and have an automatization. And this is also another tool which allows you to collect the high-level information from the company, from the organization, and use the business intelligence, use the to build an insight and have valuable data. So this is something I think it's worth mentioning, because from my personal experience, even very experienced Excel users doesn't know about this feature, or find it as a very, very difficult. But definitely they don't see the use case for them. But I'm sure the case I've described to you, it's very often used in the everyday company, and probably every single worker who works with data was forced from time to time to do such a report. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back to the presentation. So this is we are slowly coming to the end. Summary. So main points. It's really fast to build. Easy to maintain and modify. This is something which comes meet the expectation of Agile company, that we are working in Agile while, so we have a tool which can be used in this way. So it's a solution for data exchange between Agile teams, big Agile teams. Because if the team is small, then you can have a meeting and you can talk with people can talk each other. But if it's big, then it's impossible. Then, if the company has something like an institution of monitoring projects, it's called usually project management office. And this is the people who look for many projects which are inside company and want to monitor them. Then it's also tool. Maybe then this content information I've shown you is not so crucial, but still KPIs and things like that are still very important because we need to know what's inside. And of course, this tool enables dialogue discussion between teams. And it's of course good that you know what other people do. So here is my name once again. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'm strongly encourage you to experiment with Power BI, using it and think how you can automatize things, enable data exchange in the company, because this is something which gives, automatization, data exchange. This is something which is crucial in Agile world. And our world became more and more agile every single day. So this is important. And it's not only the software, this comes from software, but it's not anymore software restricted methodology. And we are experienced, I think, many of our customers also have some similar problems. And this is good to provide the solution. And this is one way of doing that. So from my side, it's everything. So if there is some question, that of course, thank you.
Thank you, Valdemar. Really good overview of what you can do with just existing tools. I didn't know much about the Excel, and you can use the Excel more powerful. Of course, you can do it. But how do you feel? I mean, do you really need to be experienced Excel person to be able to do this kind of things that you showed, or is it, I mean, something that you can learn by yourself without like putting too much effort?
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, first of all, using this tool, as I showed on this presentation, doesn't require learning in a scripting language. You don't need to know the SQL queries. You don't need to know Python. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to be programmer. Most of the tasks which are used, you can do it using clicking. So you can do, yes, of course, you can find a tutorial. There are plenty of them. And start to use it and save time, because that's the reason. Of course, when you do it for the very first time, probably it takes a lot of time. That's obvious. But with the second and third time, as I gave this example with weekly report, first report will take you much more time. But then every single week you have benefits of this investigation. Yeah, you can do it, no problem. You can. I showed this advanced editor, but you don't need to use it at all. I know some people who use it, who didn't even know that something like that exists, and still they can use it, and it's no problem. Yeah, this is no code solution. So you don't need to be programmer to use that.
Okay. Yes, that's really good. Thank you. Regarding the agile way of team, I mean, way of working, which roles do you see that is, I mean, which person is it that who should at least pinpoint this kind of experience, or at least know this kind of things? Is it the Scrum Master, or is it a product owner, or is it like the data analyst or?
Well, this is difficult to answer in this term because I'm not so very familiar with this terminology. So maybe I will describe this role. That would be better, because that's the person who is responsible with the communication with other. So there is something maybe even more. This is something above the agile team, because the agile team they govern themselves somehow. They do the backlog, they discuss what they need to do, have a plan, have a sprints, and so on. But they need some kind of support on this level. So this is maybe the product owner, someone who is responsible for building also the backlog. And then you see, okay, we have planning meeting, planning sprint, we will think what to do. But then we realize that other teams, not our teams, we are not cooperating with them, do something which we need to be interested in, we need to learn. And so this is, I would say, if you have many teams, agile teams, in one organization, this is a person responsible for exchanging information between our team and the other teams.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Valdemar. I will not ask any more questions, but in the Agile team, we have the product owner, which is kind of the person who makes the orders to the team, and the Scrum Master, which is leading the team. So I believe like the product owner together maybe with the Agile coach, not really, maybe not the Agile coach, but maybe the person who at least looks at the KPIs, which is, which can be interested in looking into this kind of tools, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. This is, as I said, I mean, I'm not an expert in managing agile teams. I provide data for them, but okay, that's the rule. That's someone who needs to avoid unnecessary work, or the disaster is if one team do something and the other team makes it not usable because of some changes, and then there's a disaster in the company because the time is lost, the money.
That's good. That's good. I thank you again, Valdemar, Dr. Valdemar. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.